Welcome back, Epic Families.
Hi.
Bruce is joining us again this week. I hope you had a lot of good conversations last week, that you maybe learned some new stuff about Bruce you didn't know, that maybe it gave you some more perspective on just things that we experience in our life. A quick reminder, in the upcoming weeks, Sam Sherrick will be coming around and leading music. If you want to get involved in helping lead music for the next family reunion, text Nick or text myself, and we'd love to get you connected. We'd love to have you help serve and lead. But like I said, Bruce is back this week, and a quick recap on what we did last week. So Bruce shared some of his story. He shared some of his experiences with the valleys and what that looks like and what it looked like in his life. And we ended with, not all stories have to be those life-changing ones. Bruce experienced a lot, but also it's not a bad thing if you don't have to be ripped out of those hurting and tough situations. And it's actually okay to live a life full of faithfulness and trust. In this week, we're going to be continuing in that same line of thought. But first, let's read some scripture. So as a group, you can pause the video, and I want you to read Psalm 37, verse 1 through 9. So read Psalm 37, verse 1 through 9, and I want you to look for the phrase, don't fret. So look for the phrase, don't fret, and I want you to look at the context around that phrase and why it's said multiple times in those first verses. So go ahead and read as a group, and then press play when you finished. So David knew that it was hard to avoid fretting. And the phrase don't fret is kind of a more traditional way to say don't worry, don't be anxious, don't let this weight sit on you. He's saying don't fret. And that's why it's recorded 3 times in the first 8 verses of Psalm 37, because it's important. We see that we're commanded not to fret, not to worry, to commit, and to trust. Fretting and worrying is a choice, but we can't always control the thoughts that go into our mind, but we can control the ones that we decide to dwell on. So Bruce, I expect that most of us, and I'm sure that you can attest to this, will never completely stop worrying. But we can grow in faith and trust in God, and we can worry less and less. In this world, we tend to seem that we get told that we shouldn't worry about anything. You know, that life should kind of just pass us by and we should kind of just float along. But I'm sure that we haven't really experienced just the floating along feeling, and maybe we should. But how have you dealt with worrying in your life through your journey, and what advice can you give us on dealing with that?
And it's such an interesting time right now, because it's not just you shouldn't worry. What I've heard more of the last couple of years is
Right.
It's like even followers of Jesus worry about everything, like as if we had control over it.
Yeah.
So for myself, the things when I start worrying about something with one of our kids or our grandkids or something related to the church, those are normally the areas that my mind will get stuck in a loop and start just fixating on something that somehow I think my mental energy can do something about changing it.
Right.
When I end up we're told in the scriptures, prayer has to be like first resort, first thing you go to. Cast all your cares, your anxieties on Him, because He cares for us.
Right.
So a load that I can't or shouldn't be carrying, prayer is what I use to be able to. Okay, it says, the other thing I ask myself, is He still on His throne? So it's about sovereignty, of when something is bugging me, or I'm worried about how's this going to turn out, or what's the next step, or I don't have a solution. Is He on His throne or not? Whose job is it to fix it? And instead of, or to solve it, or to, solve or fix, instead of, it's my job, I got to figure this out. That's where worry comes from. I've taken it on. Instead, it's saying, nope, He's on His throne, He's still in charge. And then Pastor J. Bell used to say all the time to us, right size your problem and right size God. So we tend to, like McDonald's, will supersize the problem and worry over it, and God's little over here in the corner.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's the opposite. If I can, in that time of worry, get to where, nope, right size God and right size the problem, that's stuff that has helped me.
Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, we're told to delight in the Lord, to delight yourself in the Lord. So I want you, Epic Families, to think about, you don't have to pause the video, but think about the things that you delight in. Think about what is your greatest source of pleasure? Where do you get a lot of your enjoyment from? And if knowing God is not our highest joy and delight, if we don't know God very well, then it's because we haven't invested enough time in getting to know Him. And so if your greatest delight, if your greatest source of pleasure is not from the Spirit, if it's not from God, then I promise you it's going to eventually run dry and then leave us with that empty feeling that I'm sure that we've experienced before. And so, Bruce, how have you delighted in the Lord even when life or our situation doesn't seem very delightful?
History. So most people know I'm kind of a history nerd. I wasn't in school, didn't like it, but ever since I like it. And you'll see in the scriptures when David is good at it in the Psalms. How long, oh God, till you're going to fix this? Have you abandoned us? I cry out to you all night long, and it feels like you don't listen to me and nothing's changed. And the way he deals with himself, and it's not just David's Psalms, but then it's recounting history. And the Israelites were famous for, okay, when you aren't sure how God's gonna handle something or work in your life, what did he do in the past? And so they'd point back at the Exodus. That was their favorite thing to look back to. And it appears over and over again. It's the same thing in the New Testament. Stephen goes to it when they're getting ready to stone him. He gives this history lesson on Israel. And the reason is they're going back to, where have we seen God's hand in the past? And when life doesn't seem very delightful right now, really good thing to look backwards long enough to say, does he know what he's doing? Did he handle that? Did he show himself faithful? Did I survive that? And that history then allows you, even in the middle of, I'm not sure right now and prone to fretting, you can delight. I know who he is. I know what he's done in the past. I don't know how he's going to resolve this, but based on what he did before, I can lean on him. I can trust him. The other thing for me is I have this thing I go through in my head that actually goes back to a sermon series way back, probably a dozen years ago, maybe more, that was on the characteristics, or we call them the attributes of God. What's he like? Exodus 34, 6 and 7 is really good. Moses is not wanting to lead the people anymore. And God just says, he declares who he is. Gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, keeping his promises. And so I'll just go through in my head. Who is he? Holy, loving, grace, mercy, power. And that kind of calms me down and allows me to go, yeah, he's worthy of my trust, even when life doesn't seem great.
And so, continuing on in that thought line, a really hot topic, and maybe something that we kind of touched on in the beginning, is often as a result of worry, often as something that comes down the line from worry, is typically anger or typically frustration. And especially today, because it's almost like we're told to worry about everything and then get angry about it when it doesn't change, or get angry about it when it doesn't go your way. And we see in verse 8, it says, refrain from anger and turn from wrath. And it's if you don't get angry today, then you must not care. If you don't show this emotion, then it must not mean something to you. And the Apostle Paul gives us an especially helpful command when it comes to dealing with anger. And it comes from, Psalm 37:8. It says, unless we forget for the third time, David reminds us, don't fret, it leads to evil doing. And in Ephesians 4:26, he says, in your anger, do not sin, do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. So he's telling us, don't let anger lead us to harmful things. And we're often told that we should be angry and be frustrated, especially when people don't agree with us. And so have you ever struggled with anger or frustration, or even today, because you've had a lot of reasons to? We heard last week that you had a ton of reasons to be angry and frustrated with your situation, with the deck that you were dealt. And so how have you kind of trusted God through that frustration, and how has He helped you overcome those moments of frustration and doubt?
One of the most helpful things to me, and I get angry. People have talked about, Chad Hummel will tell you, boy, I never saw Bruce angry until I played basketball with him.
Yeah.
I'm really competitive. A lot of that goes back to my identity. When I'm not, it's like I think I tried to prove something on the basketball court. Like I can compete, or I'm as good as you. And that's really common for guys.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, and women too in athletics. When the competitiveness gets you to the point of anger, something else is going on. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I do, I was taught years ago, anger is always a blocked goal. I think I need something, I want something, or in a sermon series here a year ago we talked about it as demandingness. Mm-hmm. You know, why is everybody so ticked? It's because I want it my way, and I'm demanding. That comes from the same place worry comes from.
Right.
Pride.
Mm.
Mark Perry is famous for talking about, oh, you're a worrier? That actually is a pride issue. What? Well, yeah, I think God can't handle it, so I've got to take it, and I think I'm more important than I really am. Mm. Anger's the same thing. Demandingness. Wait a minute. I should be in charge here. It should go my way. I should win. What are you doing getting in the way of what will make me happy, comfortable, what I think I need? Mm-hmm. And it's like, wait a minute. God's told me He'll provide everything I need for life and godliness. Yeah, but I need this too. Yeah. And that demandingness. So on the basketball court, for me, it's, wait a minute, I should win. Well, says who? And then I really had to do this heart surgery thing of, no, if you are going to go to enjoy the guys and enjoy the exercise, don't go. Because it's just taken your heart taken my heart into a spot that is not doing me any good. So just back away from it. Generally that, when I start feeling the temperature going up, I'll try to back away, and then I'll say, okay, what's the goal? What is it I think I need? Mm-hmm. that somebody or something's gotten in the way? And usually what happens to me, what defuses me or calms me down is, what a dumb goal. Or when you stop, there's the trigger and you vent, but when I stop and say, well, what is it that I'm demanding? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that isn't very wise. Right. And that isn't my job to demand it. Yeah. And that helps to diffuse it. Mm-hmm.
And so that was really 2 in 1. I mean, talking about worry and talking about anger, I mean, it really can come from the same place. And so that is addressing one huge area of where we struggle right now in our culture, especially is, that pridefulness. It's about me, it's about what I want, it's about what I think I need. And so that often leads to a lot of hopelessness, because it seems that if I don't get what I want, then like, where am I supposed to go from here, right? And so a spot that I just want to leave this on, and this will be the last question I have for you, is how can we look outward? How can we look and see where we are right now? And how can we see what seems to be so much turmoil around us and find that hope, even though it seems hopeless?
Yep. Good question. And I'm going to back up 30 seconds to say one other thing. The other thing I have to do with anger or worry, I was looking before we started, 2 Corinthians 10, take every thought captive.
Yep.
So you were right, you started it out with, well, most of us, worry will come in. We can't necessarily control the thought that comes in.
Right.
We can control, with the Holy Spirit's help, and God's power at work in us, we can control what do I dwell on.
Right.
So that's why it's fair for God to say, no, you don't need to fixate and worry, or when it doesn't go the right way, be angry. But that taking thoughts captive is huge for me.
Yep.
On, wait a minute, where's that going? And I have this weird thing that I do. I've told lots of people this. I read a book years ago of how do you take thoughts captive. And this guy, what he did, he had this mind trick of, or picture. Saw a moving van pull up in front of his house. The guys in the jumpsuits come out, they grab the thought, load it in the moving van, and it pulls away. Now that's hokey, but I'll do that in my head. Go, oh, that's a thought I don't want stand there. I'll imagine the moving truck coming, the guys grabbing the thought, putting it in there and driving it away. Because like, I don't want that there. Anyways, you asked about hope. Yeah, there's a huge choice right now. Even for followers of Jesus, I mean, in our culture, it's all about anger, distrust, fear, fretting.
Right.
Everything's broken. Even followers of Jesus can get stuck in that, because that's where our world is right now. The opposite, for us, we get to trust. Is God trustworthy? Do I know what he did in the past? Does the Bible tell me? Do I get to assume he's the same yesterday, today, forever? Everybody picks a foundation. What am I going to build my life on?
Right.
And we've got the advantage of, I do have a foundation that's solid, that's stable, that I can build my future, my choices, my plans. Who is he? And so the most hopeful thing, I think, for us is to talk about the foundation and to say, well, what are you building on? Because the fear and the hopelessness is coming from all the foundations are shifting. Can anything be trusted? There's one anchor that can be. We've got God. He's the one, the only one that can be trusted. He's the only one that promises. Really good, verse 4 is one of my favorites in Psalm 37. Yeah, build on him, and he's going to shape what goes on in your heart, and he's going to carry you through the decisions and whatever the challenge or the cause of the worry is. And I think for us to be people of hope is just going, I'm going to hang on to my anchor. I'm going to build on the right foundation, and we're going to stick out. You already do as students. You stick out at school, in your classroom, people who are able to love and trust and hope. That's getting more and more rare.
Yeah.
And that comes because of our trust in God.
Absolutely. And so, Epic Families, I want most of your conversation tonight to be focused around what it looks like. What is your foundation? Are you sure of it? Is it something that you practice and that you put into practice and that you spend time with? Because it's awesome to talk about this with other believers. That's something that we have an advantage of, especially in our smaller Epic families, is you get to have those great conversations. And so, Bruce, thank you for joining us again. It's always so awesome just to hear your words of wisdom. But Epic families, I hope you have great conversations. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and that you feel more hope-filled, that you don't have to worry as much, that your anchor, that your foundation is secure. I hope you guys have a great week in the Lord. We'll see you next week.